Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Bodhi Gaya, with its Mahabodhi temple and the stone slab called Vajra Asana or Diamond Throne, marking the place under the Bodhi tree where the Buddha attained enlightenment, is the most sacred of all Buddhist sites, and the most important pilgrimage site dedicated to the Buddha, his meditative practice, and the superior knowledge he gained from the light emanating from Samadhi. Today there is a Buddhist complex here with an area of several acres that has at its center the Mahabodhi Temple, or the Temple of the Great Enlightenment, a temple built around 150 CE that marks the place where the Buddha attained liberation. Here are also found a descendant of the Bodhi tree, and a multitude of small stupas and Buddhist monuments that mark other places where the Buddha sat in Samadhi, or where he walked to revive his body after long periods of continuous meditation. Those who follow the teachings of the Buddha, more than 2.5 millennia after they were expounded, come here with reverence and devotion to him and his teachings. Some pilgrims immerse themselves here in meditation for moments, minutes, or hours, and Buddhist monks from all over the world come and recite the sutras that preserve the teachings of the Buddha. Before coming to meditate here at Bodhi Gaya, after leaving his palaces in Kapilavastu, Prince Siddhartha, the future Buddha, had already visited 2 renowned meditation teachers, one near Vesali, the capital of the Licchavi Republic of those times, and the second near Rajagriha, the capital of the Magadha kingdom. Disappointed by the fact that despite the very deep level of samadhi he had reached, it had not brought him the liberation he was striving to achieve, Siddhartha moved on. Traveling through the kingdom of Magadha, he arrived here, on the banks of the Neranjara River, near a village called Uruvela, the ancient name of the current town of Bodhi Gaya. Siddhartha will stay here, in a pleasant grove on the riverbank, and will practice meditation and a series of severe ascetic practices for about 6 years. According to the accounts recorded in the Pali Suttas, with his teeth clenched and his tongue pressing against the roof of his mouth, he will strive to control his mind, with sweat running down his armpits from the effort. Here he will also practice meditation accompanied by the complete cessation of breathing, an advanced form of what is today called pranayama, but with such force that he will get terrible headaches, excruciating stomach pains, and an unbearable burning sensation throughout his body. He will also practice a severe fast, limiting his food so much that his body reaches a state of extreme emaciation. Due to the lack of food, his ribs, pelvic bones, and spinal vertebrae become visible, his eyes sink into their sockets, his skin color darkens, and he faints frequently. Despite the excruciating pain, his determination to achieve liberation remains unwavering. But he notices that these practices have not brought him the superior knowledge he was seeking. He wonders whether, in order to attain liberation, he should resume the practice of samadhi, beginning with that pleasant state of meditation which he had first experienced as a child under a jambu tree when his father, the Raja, was taking part in the festival of the first ploughing. Aware that the attainment of states of samadhi was impossible due to his weakness and the extreme fasting he was observing, he accepts a bowl of food from a woman named Sujata from the nearby village of Senanigama. Some believe that the food was rice with milk. Others believe that it was a mixture of rice with wheat or barley. After regaining his strength through this nourishing food, on a full moon night in April-May, sitting under the Bodhi tree here, completely detached from sensual desires and impure states of mind, Siddhartha entered and remained in the first jhana, the first level of samadhi, with his mind filled with a state of joy and his body filled with a pleasant sensation springing from detachment. Thoughts were still arising and processes of sustained analysis were still taking place in his mind. without being overwhelmed by this pleasant sensation, calming the arising of thoughts and the sustained analysis. He entered and remained in the second jhana, in which the mind is filled by a state of peace and turns inwards, achieving the state of one-pointedness, with no more thoughts arising and no more processes of analysis going on, feeling a new state of joy of the mind, and with the body permeated by a new pleasant sensation springing from the state of samadhi. Continuing to persist in meditation by letting go of the mental joy, watching attentively, as an uninvolved witness who sees and understands everything clearly, and feeling fully, deeply, the pleasant state of the body, Siddhartha reached and remained in the third jhana. Renouncing bodily pleasure as well as pain, the states of mind of happiness or sadness having already disappeared, Siddhartha entered and remained in the fourth jhana, a state in which there is no longer any pain or pleasure, but only the complete purity of continuous attention and the power to look at everything as an uninvolved witness. This state of mind, peaceful and concentrated in samadhi, pure and radiant, without any impurities, malleable, stable, unwavering, Siddhartha then directed towards the knowledge of his previous lives. In the early part of that full moon night, he remembered the details of his countless previous lives, a saga of endless time. His present life was no longer an episode set in the unknown. He saw the causes of all his instinctive tendencies, of all the patterns of the mind. Everything made sense. Ignorance was destroyed, and knowledge arose. The darkness disappeared, and Siddhartha saw an unearthly light, which came neither from the sun, nor from the moon, nor from fire. Then Siddhartha directed his mind, calm and concentrated in samadhi, pure and radiant, to know how beings die and how they come back to life. With a vision like that of the beings of light, which surpasses the sight of men, he sees beings passing away and coming back to life, in an excellent place or in a miserable place, beautiful or ugly, happy or unhappy. He sees and understands how all beings come back to life, each according to his deeds. It was the second knowledge which he acquired in the second part of the night. Then Siddhartha directed his mind to see how the flow of states that obscure and intoxicate the mind can be stopped, once and for all. These are their sources. This is their stopping. This is the path that must be taken to stop their flow once and for all, he understands. Through this realization, his mind attains the ultimate freedom from the sources of sense desires, from the desire for a new becoming, and from ignorance. My liberation is unshakable. All that I had to do, I have done. This is my last birth. From now on, for me, there will be no more new becoming, he realizes. The third part of the night was ending. It was just before sunrise. Now he was no longer a seeker of truth. He had become the Buddha. He would later liken his discovery to that of a man who, walking through the forest, would see an ancient road, and by following it, would discover an ancient city, an old royal residence, surrounded by forest, which had been inhabited by people of old, beautiful, with parks, groves, terraces, and lotus ponds. He never considered himself an inventor of the path to liberation, which he would describe again and again in his discourses, but only someone who had rediscovered an ancient path which other Buddhas had also walked in the past. The following weeks the Buddha would spend long periods in samadhi. He would spend the first 7 days and 7 nights in samadhi under the Bodhi tree. On the last night, he will analyze how beings come to life and how rebirth can be stopped. The third week, a storm will break out of nowhere, with wind, overcast skies, rain, and cold weather. He will spend it in samadhi under another tree, where a giant king cobra, Mukhalinda, will coil itself 7 times around the Buddha's body, completely covering his head with its huge head and hood to protect him from the cold, rain, insects, and heat. After the storm passed, the cobra uncoiled itself and disappeared. Today, inside the Mahabodhi complex, there is a statue of the king cobra Mukhalinda, located about 150 meters south of the Bodhi tree in the middle of a lake. The next week he will spend in Samadhi under another tree called the Rajayatana, or royal domain tree. Two merchants passing by with a caravan of goods will offer him barley porridge and rice cakes with honey, and will prostrate themselves before him, saying, "I entrust myself to the Buddha. I entrust myself to his teaching." Inside the Mahabodhi complex, about 40 meters southeast of the Bodhi tree, there is today a young Rajayatana tree, on the spot where the old tree from the Buddha's time is believed to have stood. The following week, the Buddha will return to meditate under the goatherd's banyan. Here, he will feel inclined to not expose the teaching he had discovered, thinking that it would be too difficult to understand and to follow for his ignorant contemporaries attached to the pleasures of the senses. According to legend, Brahma himself, a god of light considered by Hindus to be the creator of the world, will appear before the Buddha and tell him that there are still people in the world who, if they could hear his teaching, would understand it and put it into practice. With his all-encompassing vision of the one who had achieved liberation, the Buddha looks at the world of people and sees that there are all kinds of beings, people capable of knowledge, and people incapable, intelligent people and stupid people, people with good inclinations and people with bad inclinations, people who can be trained and people who cannot be trained. He will first expound his teaching to 5 ascetics at Sarnath near Varanasi, and will spend the next 45 years expounding it to people of all social conditions and castes in the main kingdoms of the northern Indian subcontinent. His teaching will be like an earthquake in the field of religious and spiritual practices of the Indian subcontinent, and later, of humanity itself. Old religious practices will fall into ridicule, and new currents of spiritual practice based on natural ethics, samadhi and direct knowledge, aiming at liberation from the cycle of birth and death, will come into prominence. The first attempt to protect and delimit the place where the Buddha meditated on the night he attained liberation was made during his lifetime. By order of King Pasenadi, the place was surrounded with a double wooden fence. Later, around 250 BCE, during the reign of Emperor Ashoka, a first temple was built here, a small open pavilion, 12.8 meters long and 9 meters wide, supported by 12 pillars. Around it, at the order of Ashoka, a stone fence was built. The circumference of the entire area, in the middle of which were the Vajra Asana, the place where the Buddha meditated, and the Bodhi tree, was about 76 meters. The Vajra Asana was marked by a sandstone slab, 2.4 meters long and 1.4 meters wide, and 4 columns. The Bodhi tree was just behind this slab, and its trunk apparently passed through the roof of the pavilion. To the north of this temple was a raised terrace, about 15 meters long and about 1 meter wide, oriented in the east-west direction, marking the place where the Buddha walked to rest his body after his long period of meditation. The current Mahabodhi temple was built on the same site around 150 CE by order of the Indo-Scythian king Huvishka by 2 Brahmin brothers. The Mahabodhi temple was built exactly over the Vajra Asana, which thus became the center of the central chamber of the temple. During excavations made inside the temple to renovate the floor, 3 different slabs were found here at different depths, marking the position of the Vajra Asana. The Neranjara River, now known as the Falgu River, repeatedly flooded the area, including the temple, and the ground level rose over the centuries due to the alluvium of soil and sand deposited by the floods. The upper slab that marked the site was later moved outside the temple, being positioned near the western wall, under the Bodhi tree, where it still stands today. Although the Vajra Asana slab is now a few meters to the west of its historical position, It is nevertheless located in a more suggestive place, considering that the Buddha attained liberation meditating in the open air, under a tree, and not inside a temple. In 1863, when the first archaeological research began in the area under the command of the British archaeologist Sir Alexander Cunningham, the Mahabodhi temple was in ruins. In 1880, however, on the orders of Sir Ashley Eden, Governor of Bengal, it was restored and brought to its present form.
I went to Bodhgaya for almost like 15 to 20 days. I spent 3 days underneath the Bodhi tree. I used to go there every day around 5 a.m. and meditate there. It was a wonderful experience meditating there. People from all over the world were coming there and they were giving respect to the Buddha, and it was a joy to see the type of respect they were giving to the person who really deserved the wonderful genius, the great psychological genius of the world, the Buddha.
Over the millennia, the Bodhi tree, a symbol of liberation, has been repeatedly cut down, burned and destroyed. But each time, it has been reborn, either from its own roots or replanted from a scion of its own. Today, it is the same as before and yet different, different and yet genetically the same. Like the Bodhi tree, still alive today, the Buddha's teachings come to life again and again in the heart and mind of every meditator when, through the practice of samadhi, they discover the truths he described, as if walking an ancient path and discovering the traces of his footsteps. As in the great ocean there is but one taste, that of salt. In all the teachings I have given you there is but one taste, the taste of freedom.
Mano Pobban Gama Dhamma Manu Setha Manu Maya Mansache Padothena Bhasati Va Karoti Va Tato Nan Dukhman Veti Chakkan Va Vahto Padan Mano Pobban Gama Dhamma Manu Setha Manu Maya Mansache Pasannena Bhasati Va Karoti Va.